Welcome to the art and science of difficult conversations. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lucie, and we love having difficult conversations.
That's right. And each week we'll either share a tip, hear how others have gotten better at difficult conversations, or demonstrate common difficult conversations and what to do and what not to do.
Let's get into it.
If you were to meet me now in any professional or personal capacity, you'd probably describe me as outgoing, friendly, social. Especially if you're in a work environment, you're going to notice that I am comfortable as a facilitator. This is the weird thing. If you had met me, same me, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would describe me as really shy, really not willing to talk. And that's really the reality for most of my life. I've not been comfortable with having conversations with people, difficult or not difficult, just having conversations with people. And so, how did I get here? I don't want to spend too much time on my history, but the reason why it's important is when people get into difficult conversations, their questions are, how do I say this? How do I respond to this behavior? How do I do that? Those are helpful. Those are good tactics. We should learn those, and we're actually going to cover a lot of those on this podcast. We want to learn how to do difficult conversations better. An important aspect that a lot of people will look over is, how do you respond to these conversations? What is it about yourself that makes these conversations difficult? For me, I grew up as a child of immigrants. My dad was an immigrant, my mom was a refugee. And so they're in a strange new land. They're millions of miles away from the home they've ever known in their life. And so when you're in that environment, when you're in that kind of situation and they lived in an area that was mainly white, I'm Chinese, you learn how to just go with the flow. A survival instinct. You just go with the flow. You don't want to talk about things that'll rock the boat. You just want to put your head down and get to work. And also, part of our culture is just putting your head down. Let's not talk about hard things. So my parents never talked to me about hard conversations, about relationships, work, sex, all those things that are kind of important to talk about. They didn't talk about those things with us. Surprise to me when I got out of college and I went to my first job in a psychiatric hospital working with adolescents. And the environment there was much different than anything I had ever been exposed to. People sharing about really difficult things like suicide, wanting to hurt themselves, sex. So I had to quickly learn how to be comfortable with those things. So much so that I actually decided to make that a career. I actually went to school to become a therapist. I actually lucked into a niche where I focused on sex offending behaviors. And when you're working in that type of intense population, you are really diving deep into hard conversations, things that nobody really wants to talk about: sex, the mechanics of sex, desires, ideations, all of these kind of things that are not normal dinner conversation. And then I also talked about complex trauma. So I had to quickly learn how to have hard conversations with people about their innermost feelings and thoughts. I also had to have hard conversations with government officials and state agencies around negotiating levels of care. And that carried over to when I then worked in health insurance. I had to work with, even within health insurance, but also with external providers, how to negotiate different needs, levels of care, how to negotiate costs. And so that takes me to today, where I then transitioned into learning and development and leadership development. And at first, I didn't realize the parallels, but over time, I've learned that those skill sets have really been helpful in helping me become a better leader and helping other leaders become better leaders, because that's one of the biggest questions I always see and I always hear and I always get. How do I have this type of difficult conversation with an employee? How do I address this with this person or address this type of behavior? Surprise, there's lots of actually parallels there. And so one of the things I've done is think about, what is it about difficult behaviors and difficult conversations that are hard for people? And I didn't realize this, but a lot of people are like me. They didn't learn how to have difficult conversations. You're probably listening and you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, that sounds like me. Either people avoided it or you were just told to ignore your feelings altogether. All of that could be true. All of that is fair enough. And that's fine for a survival instinct in a family when you're growing up and you're trying to just get along the best you can. It's a lot harder when you now have to work with other people and their own styles. And some people are willing and happy to talk about their feelings and push back, and other people aren't. During this podcast, myself and Lucie, we really want to help people get comfortable and confident in these kind of conversations. Lucie, thanks for sharing your story and your life with us.
Thank you for having me and listening to the story. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear your story. And I know just from our talking, I know you're not from the States originally, but I'd love to just hear everything about kind of how you got to the States and then how you got into coaching and working on difficult conversations and mindsets.
Thank you. Yes, so originally, as you see, my name is not the typical American name. uh, looks like a some Eastern European name. So yes, actually, I come from the Central Europe, Czech Republic, and I studied to be a teacher of social sciences for high school colleges and English literature. And as I finished my school and was ready to teach, I actually got two job offers, and one of them was a very stable job from a next village. I actually come from a small village in Czech Republic
Hmm.
that has like 2,000 people in it,
Oh, wow.
and so everybody knew everybody. And I saw my future at that moment, when I was considering the job offer from a school that I actually used to go to teach there. And I saw my life like another 50, 60 years ahead of me. I'm taking the two bus stops there into the next village, seeing the same people, meeting the same people, doing the same thing. And I realized I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to settle. I I look sometimes younger than the people that I was supposed to teach. So I'm like, maybe I'll do something else. And there was an opportunity in the States to actually, I was thinking, where I had a family member in the States. And so I decided just to explore. And there was another piece to the story. I was very introverted, very shy at the time as well.
Hmm.
And that will be a story for another time. But I really realized I want to open up. I want to grow as a person. And if I stay in this small village, very comfortable lifestyle, stable lifestyle, I would have a job, very convenient. But I felt I wouldn't grow as a person.
Hmm.
And that's one of my key things is really growing and learning. It's one of my key values. And so I took the leap of faith and I went to California, even though my family member was in Chicago.
Hmm. Yeah.
So because I couldn't find another job opportunity there, so I went into one of the biggest cities, Los Angeles, from the small village, and that definitely opened lots of opportunities for my growth.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
I've tried different things. I've tried business. I had a mini retail business in the past. I did marketing, accounting, HR. Basically, once I learned something, I felt like, okay, now I need to do something else.
Hmm.
And I kind of became an entrepreneur. So past 12 years, I think most of my life, basically that life, I've been an entrepreneur, self-employed. Um, and that's definitely been an adventure and a growth opportunity. So I continue learning and growing. And in 2015, somebody said, Lucy, you have so many different experiences and you help people naturally. Like, why don't you become a coach? I'm like, huh, wait,
Hmm.
what? And so I looked into it more. I shared with some friends, you know what? I think I'm going to try the coaching thing. And on one trip, and one of the friends came after the trip and asked, Lucy, could you help me with something? And he became my first client in a way.
Cool.
So it kind of naturally happened. I had few test clients. I realized, yes, they are getting results. And I realized I like it. I continuously need to learn. So I felt maybe this is a career I could stick with longer.
Yeah.
And so far, it's been since 2015. Now it's 2023. I'm still actually deeper and deeper into coaching. And I transitioned more from a business coaching to now leadership, mental fitness coaching, um, where we also have difficult conversations as a common topic that
Hmm.
clients bring into the coaching sessions.
Yeah.
And I would say coaching really fulfills me. Compared to teaching, I still feel I'm helping people, uh, our personal growth. However, with coaching, I see the changes sometimes immediately within the session, sometimes within a few sessions, we see the changes already in being implemented. And that's exciting for me as well. So there's creativity. There's also a big growth for myself with each person I speak with. I learned something new. It also challenges me and my own personal growth, kind of accountability there. What I tell others, I should definitely also tell myself. And so learning and contributing to others that I see in a meaningful way, and it's very fulfilling. And I'm very grateful that I get to do this.
Yeah, what a story. That's cool. So then what year did you officially come over to the States?
Oh my God, it's like 17 years ago now. 2006. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh boy. A lot of math there.
God.
17. But I think it's interesting. You had essentially a stereotypical midlife crisis at a very young age. You look forward, you're like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life.
I guess so. Yeah, I left. Yeah, right after university, actually, half a
I'm
year
interested.
after
You said
finishing.
something really interesting. You said that you were an introvert and that
Yeah.
you had that desire to just learn more and grow more and see outside the bigger world out there.
Yeah.
Um, where do you think that came from? What do you think built that inside of you to have that desire?
I think the desire has been always there. I think I've been always very curious, asking lots of questions. And people thought I'm gonna grow up out of that, and I still keep asking questions. Now you're getting paid for it. So I would say I've been always very curious. In the past, I come from a background we didn't have much money, so we couldn't
Mm,
travel really. Also, it was during communism when I was little, so really the travel was not as popular or permitted sometimes into different countries.
mhm,
Plus, we didn't have the resources to really travel. So my travel was books. That was my
mm,
adventure. Reading books about travel, reading books about different people's stories and adventures. And that's how I learned. And at one point, I decided I don't want to read books anymore. I actually want to live those stories. I want to have some adventure.
mm.
And for sure, having your business is a big adventure.
Yeah, yeah,
Lots of ups and downs.
sure.
So I feel the desire was always there, but there was also a big fear
Mm,
and something really that was holding me back. There were times when I didn't say what I wanted. I didn't want to offend people, or I didn't want them to think about me something, who knows what. So I
mhm,
kind of played it safe. Even when I was a teenager, I didn't express, I like the boy
mm,
because I was so afraid of the rejection. I also was wearing glasses at the time.
mhm.
So my confidence were very low, I would say, at the time. Plus, our whole family, I guess, we are more on the shy side. So I
Yeah,
didn't have even
yeah.
like a role model. And there was something that happened actually um, I think I was at high school still. No, I was around 20. Um, so I guess university beginning. When one night I was taking shower and I found a lump
Mm,
under my arm, basically by my breast. And I kind of freaked out. I waited till the morning to tell my mom. And she said, great, our check honesty. Your dad's cousin had the same thing and she was dead within 3 months.
mm. That's honest right there.
Thank you,
Yep,
mom.
yep.
Our bluntness in our family. So I went to a doctor and, they did biopsy to find out what's going on. And I was thinking, I had this information. Okay, we had in family that somebody had possibly the same thing and was dead within 3 months.
Mm,
And I remember, in the evening, taking another shower, and I remember myself like thinking, okay, what if I am dead in 3 months?
mm.
Um, and I wasn't afraid of death. That is for another story.
Yeah, okay.
But what I felt was a huge regret.
Mm,
Regret that I didn't allow people to really know who I was because so many times I just suppressed what I wanted to say.
mm.
that I really didn't express myself fully because of the shyness. I felt I missed out on so many things, and I felt regret that I didn't get to experience the things in my life, that I didn't get to travel really much. I didn't get to get married.
Mm.
And so there was lots of regret. So luckily it wasn't cancer. I didn't die. It was a benign, some tumor, but it benign.
Good to hear. Good to
They took
hear.
it out, so
Yeah.
all good. But I think it was a huge blessing for my life, because I think that gave me the kick, in a way, that nudge to. I decided at the time I'd rather fail a million times by trying and
Mm.
going after it, rather than have the regret that I felt
Yeah.
that I didn't do it. So I think that gave me the courage, even though there was lots of fear, there was lots of um, resistance. As naturally, I am introverted still,
Hmm.
but the knowing what I don't want to feel that regret in my life. I
Mm.
rather embarrass myself 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I know I'll survive it. And at least I can have the peace of mind that, yes, I did it. I tried it.
Yeah. And that's a powerful story. Thanks for sharing. That's incredible. And that's, I've heard that before from other people too. It's that um that feeling of not wanting to feel regret, not wanting to feel like you missed out on things. Um, and that spurs people to try things they've never tried before. And so that's incredible. So then you decided you're just gonna dive into things, you're gonna try things even if you fail.
Even
That's
emigrate to a new country where I didn't know anybody in that,
right.
at least, state.
I want to go back to I want to pull that into because earlier you said that your family was blunt with each other. Were they blunt with people outside of your family?
I wonder if that's part of Czech culture. They were kind of blunt people. We are very honest usually.
Mm.
Even in the store, um, when you used to go, especially during communism, possibly, go to a store, the the owner of the store or the shop assistant was like, "You're bothering me. I'm doing my own stuff." And so they didn't smile at you if they didn't have a good mood. They wouldn't smile at you. They wouldn't pretend.
Hmm.
They just would say what's on their mind a lot of times.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
they're
That must be good and bad, right? Like if you know if somebody's actually
exactly,
thinking and feeling.
exactly. So on one hand, you actually, so mostly, we are more reserved. Sometimes we don't say the good things to people.
Hmm.
Um, People wouldn't be called as fake as much. Now it's been changing, I would say the culture is also changing under the American influence. Even when I was working in a store while at school as like a part-time job to make money
Hmm.
as I was studying, there was American company that I was working for, and we got instructions: when the customer comes, smile.
Hmm.
and and for me that was kind of funny, but I was thinking, yeah, probably it's important for Czech culture to actually say that you need to smile when somebody comes, because people would not smile. They, if they didn't feel good, they just don't smile,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't make the extra effort, to put on a face in a way.
Hmm.
So that's I think one of the good things. Yes, usually where you stand with people. The other one, it could get also very negative.
Hmm.
I
I
would
can
say
see
is
that.
the
Yeah.
downside. And I would say part of that, part of reason why I left, because the region I'm coming from, it's been, uh, I would say, there was lots of poverty. There was coal mining region,
Hmm.
so not many, new job opportunities, at least at the time. And I would say there was a mentality of resentment. Also generations, my grandparents being in the Second World War,
Hmm.
and there was lots of generational trauma that nobody knew how to deal with.
Yeah.
So there's lots of alcoholism, lots of abuse. Um, People don't know just how to deal with things differently because it just seems like it's from generation to generation. Hopefully now things are changing.
Yeah.
But that's where I grew up. So part of me moving was also to get out of that environment, to instead of complaining about things and being resigned, really actually do something and change things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that sounds really familiar to a lot of even just rural areas in the US. I think there's a very similar mindset, especially places that are coal mining or very blue collar in a sense. And then the towns just keep getting smaller. Life keeps passing them by, and they're just wondering, what about us?
Yeah.
And there is that generational trauma as well, for sure. So I'm wondering, how did you combine all of that? How did you combine the experiences of your upbringing, the cultural norms of their family values of being shy as well as being blunt? How did you combine all that to just either be more comfortable or more confident in difficult conversations?
That's a great question. I think the value of honesty has been there with me always. I also saw in my family where some conversations were just being avoided. So there was one being blunt, and two, with some people, they wouldn't share certain things. And I saw the cost of that.
Mm.
Let's say my mom with her mom, my mom wouldn't share much about herself. And so the relationship really suffered, where my grandmother thought something different about my mom than was actual.
Mm.
Um, and I saw how them not having these conversations hurt both of them or hurt my mom.
Mm.
And I think that helped me really make a decision of I don't want to do that for myself. I really want to rather have these conversations, and even when they hurt, I rather have them rather than see this impact of like these distant relationships, this genuine relationships.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that comes from my background, that actually, I saw something that I didn't like, and that actually inspired me to do something different about it.
Mm.
So sometimes we have positive mentors, sometimes we have mentors that show us what we don't want to do.
Yep. Yep.
So that was my desire to why to have difficult conversations. I had to even, I hired some family members in the past. I hired friends in the past. I also had to fire friends and family
Mm.
members in the past. There were some difficult conversations, and I have to say, really keeping things honest also for myself and sharing the intention. You were asking like how it could help me have difficult conversations. I think what's been helpful, really sharing honestly, how is it for me,
Mm.
and my desire, my intention, and valuing the relationship still. And I need to say, I'm still friends with my family members, even the friends that I had to fire. Um, the relationship actually didn't get damaged
Mm.
by that. And I'm grateful for that because relationships are important to me. So, really, I would say consider our needs, consider the needs of the other,
Mm-hmm.
being open to also hearing their perspective and being present with them and caring also for their success.
Mm.
Would be one of the things that I think helps really having these difficult conversations.
It's how do you I've never had, I mean, I know situations like this, but how did you approach that conversation to fire a family member or friend while maintaining that relationship?
I just was thinking, I even fired a client who
Oh,
was actually also a friend. So maybe
sure.
I could use that example.
Yeah, sure.
So we've been she's been with me kind of my coaching journey through the years. And she came to me after some break to really work on something that was important to her.
Mm-hmm.
And at least she was saying, this is what I want to do. At the time, I was still working more on the business coaching now. So I was transitioning at the time. And she came to me. She's actually also from the same culture than I'm,
Cool.
but also living in the United States. So we're friends.
Yeah.
It's almost like a family here. And we also became, client coach.
Yep.
And at one point, I realized, I'm actually not serving her because she was showing to the sessions and really didn't do the work. So she was saying one thing, but doing another thing. And anytime I looked into it, she would always say some reason. And I felt I really am not serving her. And so I decided to have a conversation. I said, you know what? I don't want to take your money. She was paying me at the time. And you not having the results. I mean, we can have the sessions, but I feel I'm not effective here. Like, we've done this. You keep saying you want to do this, but there's always something getting in the way. So let's pause, our coaching here, because I don't see this would really work for either of us. I mean, you would lose money and you wouldn't get the results.
Yeah.
And also I wouldn't feel good about my coaching, about my services. So actually it wouldn't be win for me to get money under these circumstances. So I told her, I really want you to be successful, but maybe I'm not the right person for at this moment. And she's, because I don't see this action. So maybe you're not committed. You're maybe not as serious about this. And she said, no, I really want to do it. And so we came to an agreement. I understand. I'll think about it. So she was kind of shocked.
Yeah, sure.
So I said, if you want to come back, I want you to show me your commitment. I want you to, when you are ready to come back, if you want to still work with me, let's do you show me that you've done these things. Once you did these things, come back and we will restart our coaching, if that's still what you want to do. I think this needs to happen for me to really feel like we are moving forward. And she did take several weeks off, maybe even a month or two.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember how much was the gap. We basically completed our coaching, and then she reached out to me and said, Lucy, I'm ready now. I actually completed these things and I'm ready to really dive in fully.
Oh, interesting.
So there was a conversation I was really afraid of having, because like it's still income for self-employed person income.
Of course. Yeah.
Plus it's a friend.
Yep.
Which makes it a little bit more complicated. Yet I guess because we've had so many difficult conversations already, she probably knows me already.
Sure.
And she actually said later on, thank you for doing this for me. I think it really opened my eyes about what I was doing. And that conversation really made a huge difference for me. And thanks to you also, like by us practicing all these difficult conversations, I actually start also speaking up more for myself.
Nice. I mean, that's a great example of just even holding somebody accountable and challenging somebody and saying, you promised to do this. We're not doing this. We're not making any progress. What are we doing here?
Exactly. Do you really want this, or something is missing, but you are not telling me what?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. And then you just continue to get better and better at difficult conversations, and now you're just an expert in the field. So
I don't know if I would still call myself expert, but I think I'm a learner. I would call myself a learner.
A lifelong student.
Exactly. Yes.
So then I'm interested, just thinking about the people who are listening. Hopefully there are people listening, but let's say the 5 or 6 people that are listening. What's one or two things that you think would be really helpful for somebody to get more confident and comfortable in difficult conversations?
It's a great question. I'm thinking perhaps one of the things, because sometimes it's easy to avoid difficult conversations. well, maybe it's gonna resolve itself out. So if you feel that you have a difficult conversation, um, and thinking about postponing it or avoiding it altogether, maybe really look at the costs. What are the costs if I don't have the difficult conversation? What are the costs for me? What
Mm,
are some possible costs for the other person? If, let's say, if you don't give them the honest feedback, maybe they would never get better actually, and that it could harm them even more in some different situations. What are the costs for the project if you work on a project together and you don't give them the honest feedback,
mhm.
constructive feedback?
Yeah.
Um, so what are the costs?
Mm,
Looking also, what are the benefits? What would be the benefits for me if I have this conversation?
mm,
Um, who do I want to be as a leader, as a person, as a friend? Um, so basically asking ourselves questions to really get clear on our intention, on the
mm.
cost, on the benefits, why we are doing this, why is it important, this conversation.
Yeah.
So being clear about that why, and we can even communicate actually that why in that conversation, because usually it
Mm.
is because we care for the person, we care for the relationship, and that's why we want to resolve this,
Yeah.
so we can actually do something about it.
Right.
So one of the first steps would say, I would say, getting clear on the why, and then preparing for the conversation also.
Mm,
What is it? What are the key points that I want to communicate? For some people, because they know I'm gonna, let's say, I'm gonna get emotional. And when I get emotional, when I get hijacked by my survival brain, I cannot
yep.
think straight.
Yeah.
So one of the strategies is actually to write it down and tell the person, I'm really nervous. I don't want to forget what I want to say, but this is really important. So I wrote it down. Is that okay if I'm going to read this? And then we can discuss about it.
Yeah.
So there will be additional strategy, really also managing our emotions and having this backup plan of like having something written down,
Mm,
uh, to actually be able to communicate in a way that we want to in that situation that could be high pressure, high stress, emotional
yeah.
situation. And then practicing, I would say, is another,
Mm,
as we
yep.
practice more,
Yep.
as we get more and more experience with the positive and the benefits of actually us having these difficult conversations, I think that also can help us, having these other conversations once we and build our confidence with them too.
Yep. Yeah. Totally on board. So I love it. So you're a big proponent of asking yourself and just determining the why. And I loved your questions. I think that'll really help people figure out, do I need to say something and when should I say something? Really
Mm,
just doing a cost benefit analysis of either way.
yeah,
Um, and then preparing yourself emotionally, writing down your points if you need to, getting yourself emotionally prepared to be in this conversation, and then practicing.
yeah.
You don't get better at things without practice.
No, and it could be even role playing or watching how other people address this conversation,
Yeah.
right? Something like our podcast in a way is a way of preparing ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Could be
I love
also asking ourselves questions about other person. What could matter to the other person in the situation? And actually allowing the other person also, share their perspective.
it. Mm. Yeah. So it's not even just guessing what the other person's perspective is, but just get it from them directly, get it from the source, ask them what their perspective is.
Exactly. I love asking questions. So not only ourselves,
Yes.
but also get the other part of the story, other part of the perspective, and really say, I really would love us to work this out.
Hmm.
What would work for you? Let me
Yeah.
share what would work for me, and let's see where we can meet each other. How can we make this work together?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Lucy, well, thank you for sharing your story. It's a great story. Well, I think everybody's story is great, but yours is great. And I love hearing your journey, just your growth and your willingness to learn and get comfortable. So I really appreciate you being open and being vulnerable to share your story with us.
Thank you. And I would say for those introverted there, uh, um, it's still sometimes uncomfortable for me to share about myself. The more I do it, the easier it becomes. So it is a mental muscle in a way for us to open up, to share, to become more vulnerable. And it is possible. So any of you that are struggling with sharing about yourself, sharing your needs, it takes practice, yet it's possible and it becomes easier.
And for those of you that are listening, this is our podcast, The Art and Science of Difficult Conversations. And you're going to hear more every week. You'll hear either a tip on how to do skills within difficult conversations, or you'll hear an interview with somebody like Lucie or somebody else. Or you'll also see Lucie and I doing role plays. We'll do demonstrations of different types of difficult conversations. We'll break them down, debrief them, and see what goes well, what doesn't go well. But we want everybody to be able to walk away with specific strategies and tips. So this won't be the last time you hear Lucie. You'll keep hearing the both of us forever and ever.
And if you have any difficult conversation that you would like to prepare for and you haven't seen the topic in our show, please send us a message.
Absolutely. So we'll put that in the show notes so you can see how to contact us, but you'll be able to connect us on LinkedIn as well. And we'll see you on the next episode of the podcast.
Looking forward to it.